All right. Let's see. Do you guys want to watch more Tech Tales? Because I can put that back on. The LGR Tech Tales. I don't know who Value Select is. Who is that? Oh yeah, this is totally not my vibe. No. Yeah, sorry, no. Um, let's see. I like to watch restoration videos. Um, the Time Warp Arcade. Uh, Time Rift Arcade. They do like restoration videos and stuff. Let's see. Baby Pac-Man store. What's the one? You can't touch this console and TV hack. What? Uh, let's see. Baby Pac-Man. The Street Fighter 2 restoration is actually really cool, and so is the Play Choice 10 one. You know what? I think I'm gonna throw those up. Let me just get over to video capture. Or where's window capture? Where are you, window capture? Where's window capture? Okay. Just gonna move this. There we go. Check this out. Check this out, guys. Oh, I should probably change my thing to just chatting too. Yeah. That'd probably be a good idea. So I'm gonna do that real quick. 1 second to just chatting. Let's go over to Geek and put just chatting on this too. Ow! Who did that? Who was that? Ow! Yoko! Okay. Watch the, let's watch the Play Choice 10 one. That one's really good. Ow! Ah! I'm getting slime and everything. Ow! Jeez. Oh, is that too loud, by the way, guys?
Hello, this is David with the Time Rift Arcade, and this is going to be my next project. We just recently picked this up. This has been in storage for probably 15 years or more. Don't even know if it works.
So for those of you who don't know, the Play Choice 10 was basically an arcade machine that had NES games in it. Oftentimes, Nintendo, to test a game, like in the marketplace, would put it in the Play Choice 10 before putting it out there. Ow! And then they'd see how well it would do, and then they would leave. Like, for example, Super Mario Bros. 3 first came to Play Choice 10 before it came to NES. So let's check this out.
It's a little rough shape, so I'm going to restore it back to as close to new as possible. And for those that don't know, the Play Choice 10 is essentially like an old 8-bit Nintendo Entertainment System that can take up to 10 different games inside. Now, we do happen to have a Nintendo Super System, if you were wondering, which is a really similar thing.
Oh,
this
man.
one's actually
I really
based
want to
on
play
the
that.
Super Nintendo, not the original 8-bit. And it even has like these giant controllers that are actually
only you couldn't play it in the
on
Wizard
control panel that you can play just like a giant Super Nintendo controller. This unit only supports
Oh,
3
really?
games, and you actually have to select them with these buttons on the front here. The PlayChoice 10 was released in 1986 and came in both single and dual screen versions. There were eventually 53 different games available for it that an arcade operator could pick from to populate the machine, and ultimately it was discontinued in 1992. The one that we have is the dual screen version, and if you take a look at the game Punch-Out, you may notice a similarity. Indeed, it's the exact same cabinet with the exact same 2-monitor configuration, only with different artwork and obviously a different control panel layout, as Punch-Out was only meant for one player. Okay, here's the board set. Now this thing is kind of heavy. Let's take out these games right quick. So looking at this board, one of the things that surprised me was when I spotted a Z80 microprocessor here. After all, I knew it would need to run a 6502 style processor to be compatible with the NES games, and sure enough, here's the CPU that runs the games, and here's a modified PPU that outputs RGB instead of composite. I am concerned about these EEPROMs that have no cover over the window. I noticed a number of the game cards were like that too, so I'm going to cut out some pieces of foil tape and cover the windows on these just to be safe.
Probably a smart idea.
I'm also concerned about this battery, which could leak all over the board and destroy it. I checked it with a voltmeter.
Leaving chips like that
still
with
producing
exposed things can erase them.
0.005 volts. I think it's safe to say that removing it certainly won't hurt anything. I mean, even if I can't find a replacement, it won't make it any worse than it is now, but at least it can't leak on the board. Let's have a look at the games we got with this system. Wild Gunman, never heard of it. Duck Hunt, okay, everyone knows this one. Baseball, please, did people really play this? Hogan's Alley, never heard of it. And the last one is Pro Wrestling, and at least I've heard of it but never played it. This is a terrible set of games for this machine. I looked up the user rankings for these games, and the two best games we have are Duck Hunt and Pro Wrestling, which don't even make it into the top 50. And let's not even talk about what a terrible game NES Baseball is. Well, I think we might have a solution for this. Okay, so we're at our secret boneyard of basically broken arcades, and I think we have another PlayChoice 10 back here, and it might have some better games, so let's see if we can find them. It's going to be a little bit of a tight squeeze. Okay, I think this is it. It doesn't even have a lock on it. Oh yeah, we definitely got a lot more games on here. Oh, look at that. We got Excite Bike, Super Mario Brothers. Oh yeah, I'm gonna take this board back with us. We'll have a look. Okay, so now I have two of these. Let me take the cards out here where we can see all of the names. We have another Duck Hunt, Tennis, The Goonies, 1942, Russian Attack, Gradius, Excite Bike, Super Mario Brothers, another Baseball, and another Pro Wrestling. So there are at least a few good ones here, but you know, I mean, it's totally possible to pull the EEPROMs out of one of these games and replace them with something more desirable. Or I could just go on eBay and find the exact games I want for this system. Oh, I took the battery out of the second board, and check this out. It's bulging on the side. I'm going to see if I can remove the covering and have a look. Yuck. Yeah, see what I mean? These are ticking time bombs. Okay, time to get started restoring this thing. Upon further examination of the condition, I've decided this machine isn't so bad of a condition that we need a full restoration, so I'm just going to do more like a partial restoration. I started by removing the rear door to take a look inside, and I noticed the door wasn't even locked, and the lock itself was completely bent over.
Well, that's going to have to be fixed.
That happens a lot.
Looking at the inside, I didn't see anything that required immediate attention before powering it up for a proper test. So, it's time to plug it in and see if it works at all. And usually, on a first power up, as long as smoke doesn't start pouring out of the machine, I'll consider it a win. But in this case, it does appear that the board set and at least the top monitor is functioning. I guess I'll have to select a game to see if the bottom one is working.
Let's try Duck Hunt. Hey.
And it does appear the bottom monitor is working as well. I'll pull the gun out to test Duck Hunt.
Looks like the gun doesn't work.
Alright, well, before I take this thing apart, I thought we'd look at the coin counter. It appears this unit has been played over 32,000 times, which means it would have earned over $8,000 from quarters, which isn't really a good number, but considering this machine didn't have any good games like Super Mario Brothers, I'm surprised it wasn't worse. Okay, let's remove the control panel. Here's just a close-up reminder of what rotten shape this is in. Now I'll remove the front plexiglass, and you can see
it's amazing how this guy
restores
restores stuff.
monitors. Let me clean them up real quick, and we'll see if we can figure out what is burned in on them. So these monitors are not from a PlayChoice 10 originally, so what I'll do is I'll invert the picture and increase the contrast so we can bring this to life.
Yep.
And what you'll see is this burn-in is from the top monitor of Punch-Out. But what's interesting is that even the bottom monitor here is the same, so both of them at one point in time were in a top monitor in Punch-Out. Okay, we're going to start working on the control panel, and step one is to always take pictures and document the current setup, so when it's time to reassemble, we know where everything goes. Then we'll start the teardown process.
Oh no, they're getting the original. Oh no. But this doesn't really matter as much.
After the control panel is down to bare metal, we'll go ahead and give it some primer and paint and get it ready
Paint
for
that
new
shit
artwork.
up, B.
But while we wait for that to dry, I'll get to work on removing the side art. Off
there you go,
too much
ripping
effort.
ASMR.
The problem is it left behind all of the adhesive, so I'll try spraying some goof off and let it sit for a few minutes.
Goof off.
Unfortunately, it had zero effect, so I'll go with something a bit stronger. This is Citrus Strip. After a few minutes, the adhesive could be scraped off easily. Normally, I'd be concerned about this stuff eating away the paint, but Nintendo often used melamine coatings on the outside, which is what this one uses, so the stripper is having no effect on that. The side cleaned up very nicely. It's very smooth to the touch now. But now I get to repeat it all over again on the other side.
Yep.
After doing the other side, I noticed this chip here, and I was afraid that something like a piece of clothing were to snag on this, it would just rip it off. So I'm going to attempt to fix it with some wood glue, and then I'll clamp it down for a bit. And let's remove the bandage and see how it healed up. I mean, it's not perfect, but at least it won't get any worse now. Now I'm going to remove the CRTs. I need to remove them for two reasons. One is for recapping, and the other I'll explain here shortly. We'll take the CRTs over to the electronics room for servicing. Now, much like with the control panel, I always start by documenting the current state of the monitor, so I have reference pictures. Now it's time to disassemble it.
What I like about his videos is you also learn while he's restoring it. Lots of good steps here, documenting things before you take anything apart. Being safe, stuff like that. Very, very good advice.
I often take a few minutes to clean the CRT. It doesn't have any effect on the function, but it does make it much less nasty to touch and carry around. Most of what's found on these is usually cigarette smoke. I have two cap kits here, one for each monitor, and these kits also come with two transistors for the audio boards because those are prone to failure. Just so we're clear, if this were a personal project for home, I probably wouldn't replace any caps on it because it was already working. But these caps are at least 15 years old, and possibly much older than that. And these machines are going to be expected to run every day for years on end, so I'd rather go ahead and recap it now than wait for it to break.
That's a good piece of advice. If you have a piece of technology that's old and it's within the era of where the capacitors would explode, you should just replace them. And it's not too difficult to solder in replacements. So it's not like it's going to be huge trouble to do it, but it's just something to think about if you're buying old technology. You may have to solder some stuff in. Anyways, I'll let David continue.
Unfortunately, the way these caps are soldered in, the pins are folded over on the bottom, which makes them a royal pain to desolder. I mean, when I put in a new cap, I bend the legs slightly to keep it from falling out, but I definitely don't bend them all the way flat with the board. Okay, now
seems like a
it's time to turn my
Nintendo
attention
thing.
to the audio board.
Like they really don't
Admittedly,
want
the
people
smaller
to
board is
service
much
their
easier to
stuff.
handle and work on. And replacing the caps is quite easy, but what about those transistors? Well, one problem I have is I can't get a screwdriver in at the proper angle to take these screws out, so I'll have to desolder one of the heat sinks. And now, not only can I get this out, but I can also
Thank you, Flork, for paying the Bibu tax.
without having to take it off. And I'll use some alcohol to remove the old heatsink compound. The next little challenge is that if you look at the way the pins are bent on the original transistors and look at my new ones, clearly these aren't going to fit. So I'll take my pliers and attempt to bend the new transistor legs to match. And I think that'll work just fine. Now it's time to put this thing all back together.
Oh yeah, look at that. These things have so many like little bits that you have to do. It's amazing watching these things go back together.
And here's a little fun fact for you. Even though this was discharged already, this tube has sat disconnected for about a week, and I can guarantee you it has developed a small charge from just sitting there. I'm going to turn off the lights, and let's see if we can see a spark. Yep, there it was. It's pretty hard to see, so I'll show it again. Weird, huh?
That's why you always, even if you think it's discharged.
So I just have the monitor on a cart and I've connected it to the rear of the machine. Time to test it. And well, it works, but there are two problems that I can see. One problem is we're getting a mirror image and I need to reverse two of the wires on the yoke. These are designed to be reversed for machines that use mirrors to reflect the picture to the player. Okay, so that's fixed. Okay, that looks better, but now it's time to tackle the problem that the picture is inverted. So this is just a matter of moving the video cable to a different input. And there we go. There's our menu. Okay, next job is, let's work on the new control panel artwork. The biggest challenge with these is getting them lined up correctly. Once we're sure it's perfect, we'll clamp it down and then pull one side of the wax paper off and attach it. And once that's done, we can remove the clamps and then do the other side.
Normally, I would be upset because he didn't put reproduction on that.
Okay, that all looks good. Now,
but because it's going to be going in an arcade and being played,
the next job is to install the new side art. But before I can do that, I'll need to remove these carriage bolts, and this means removing the monitor brackets on the inside. Hence, that is the other reason I mentioned earlier that I needed to remove the CRTs. So I'll get those removed. Now that the bolts are out, I need to clean off the old vinyl artwork that was still left under the heads of the bolts. Okay, let's put on some artwork. Okay, that's all done. Now time to make some holes so I can reinstall the carriage bolts. There's this scuff in the melamine here, and this is a little trick we use sometimes. We just coat it with a Sharpie and then wipe it off. Did it work? Well, here's the before image, and here's the after, so you be the judge. Okay, and the next job is to install the T-molding. I'm not sure why, but this one was completely missing T-molding when we got it. This is already starting to look much better. One thing I noticed when putting on the T-molding is the marquee was missing the top bracket. Besides, the backlight wasn't working either, so we need to work on that. Apparently, somebody just crammed a fluorescent light in here and didn't even bother to bolt it down. And worse yet, look at how they attach the wires. This will have to be replaced. So I'll install a brand new LED light fixture. This particular one offers 3 color temperatures. Obviously, I'm going to want to go with the bright white. And then reinstall the marquee. We found a compatible bracket for the top from our scrap bin. Now let's plug it in and see how it looks. Excellent. It looks great. The next little chore is to clean
nice thing too about it being
out.
LED is it's not going to fade as fast. When you use fluorescent, it does fade it faster. So that marquee should last a lot longer now.
Out of the primary joystick. It's very stiff because the old lubricant has dried up, or possibly somebody used the wrong kind of lubricant. Either way, I've usually found a generous amount of alcohol will dissolve it. Now I'll re-lubricate it and reassemble it. And this is something we have to do on every single machine, which is replace the locks. This machine has 3 of them, which is about normal. I think we have
hi Casey, thank you.
5 though.
I'm glad you like it.
And of course,
After
here's
this
the rear
video, I'll
lock.
show the
This
model
one
off
was
again for
bent
anybody who didn't get to
completely
see it
over,
before.
probably as a result of somebody trying to open the machine that didn't have a proper key. Seems some people would rather risk damaging the machine than to drill the lock out. Now I'm going to clean up the front of the machine a bit, as I've yet to do that. The gun holster is particularly dirty. Now we'll reinstall everything back into the cabinet. Time to plug it in
That
for a
looks
quick
slick.
test. Everything appears to be working, except the monitors do need some color adjustments, which we'll do off camera. But we still have a problem that the gun is not working. I looked at the schematic, and thankfully it shows exactly which wires go to the gun trigger, so I've connected up a voltmeter to those wires to see if the actual microswitch in the gun is working, and it appears that it is not. So I think the problem is in the gun itself. So I disassembled the gun, and the problem was not hard to spot. One of the wires on the switch was literally broken off at the solder joint, which is weird, as that's not even a joint that moves. Anyway, it was pretty easy to fix, so let's test it out.
There you go.
Rats. Ooh, okay. Yeah, it's working.
Okay, so now it's time to take you back in time about 3 weeks earlier when we started this project.
3 weeks.
Now, here's the finished product. This restoration took approximately 35 man hours, which is actually a bit on the low side, believe it or not. Anyway, I hope you come by the arcade and give the PlayChoice 10 a try. Maybe we'll have some better games in it by then. That's all for this episode. Hope to see you in the arcade.
It's so cool they got that back up and running, because like a PlayChoice 10 is like a really, really interesting piece of like Nintendo history. If you're a fan of like Nintendo stuff, like Nintendo history stuff, the PlayChoice 10 is like really cool. And unfortunately, a lot of them got trashed because that was just the standard. That's the standard thing that Nintendo does. When something is done, it gets trashed. Just like that, some of you guys might have saw that video of the guy who saved that that DS or 3DS. I think it was a DS. Maybe it was a 3DS kiosk for like a demo kiosk. Like Nintendo wants the places that they send their stuff to just destroy them. They don't want them back out there in the ether. So being able to preserve something like this is really cool, because PlayChoice 10s are, they're common, but they're not as common as a lot of others. So anyways, I think some of y'all want to see more of the model, right? Fat original DS. That's the only DS I didn't have. I have DS Lites. Oh, I don't have DSi or DSXLs, but my cousin had an original DS, the big fat one, and I thought it was really nice. I still have my original DS Lite, and I have like 3 or 4 of them. So I just acquired them over time. Anyways, let me go over to my just chatting screen, and we'll take another look at the model for those of you who haven't had a chance to. So, here it is. Let's take a look at the back real quick. Let's see. There's my ponytail and my wings. You guys can see my tail from here and some cake. I love the wings. They flap around. Thanks, Mel. And let's see if I can. Pathetic. Let's see if I can I zoom in at all? Yeah, there we go. That's what you guys want to see. Hi. Get a better look at my horns here. And they go up like that. Neat. You're funny. You're funny, hun. I knew it was you. I just was like, oh, I'm not pronouncing that right now. Let's see. I need to. Oh, there's my boobs. But let's get lower. I love the scales that got changed here. Yoka spent a lot of time fixing the scales to make them look different. Don't look at my butt. Oh, you looked at my butt. Let's look at the tail some more. Let me just zoom out here. There we go. There's the tail. A good shot of the tail here. It's pretty long. It wiggles too. Yeah, you would. And I love the like leather thigh highs. I think those are great. But let's see. And then there's my feet. Free feet, I guess. Sniff if you want. Now's your only chance. Yeah, they're really well done too. I know Nyoko doesn't like them that much, but I think he did a good job. Anyways. Let's get this set back to where I was. Yeah. There we go. So yeah, that's the whole model. There are some toggles, but I can't do them on Twitch. Those real feet or shoes? I don't know. They're feet. I'm saying they're feet. Okay. How do you put on thigh highs? Very carefully. See, I use dragon magic to turn the feet into regular feet, like human feet, and then once they're on, I turn them back into dragon feet. Anyways, we got time for one more restoration video, I think, and then I'm gonna get started setting up for Marvel Rivals. Though I just realized I play on PlayStation, so I have to see if the if PSN's back up, because if it's not, I'm gonna be screwed. Let's see. Because Marvel Rivals opened, but I can't actually tell if I can play the game or not. Like, if I go to play, is this going to work? Seems to be working. Probably because it doesn't use Sony's servers. Idea for an alternative, I should say. What's your alternative idea, Esky? It seems to be working though. I think they wouldn't even let me in the game if it wasn't working. No one dies from love. You could be the first. Sorry, I have a song stuck in my head that Bill was listening to. Okay. Cards Against Humanity. We have to be careful about that one. There's also Quattro, which is just Uno, but with more people. It seems to be working though. I think because it doesn't use the Sony servers to play, I should be all right. Because I don't actually know if you need PSN to play this game. I think you just need to be connected to the server. Jackbox is later, yes. That's right. So I think this is going to work, but we'll find out when we go to play. Anyways, we got time for one more video, and then I'm going to get serious with the setup. So let's go back to my stream screen. And let's take a look at the other. There's a Street Fighter one I want to show you guys. This one's really good too. test game and quit. Maybe I'll think about that.
Hello, this is David with the Time Rift Arcade, and today I want to walk you through what we have to do for a full restoration. This is Street Fighter 2. This is a machine we recently picked up at an auction, and it's in pretty rough shape. So what I'm going to do is just show you all the different steps that we have to do to ensure that this machine is good enough to go out on the floor where people can play
Hey, Kane,
it.
things are good. We're just chilling out for a bit before the next
getting the machine
game.
moved to a place where we have room to work on it. I've often compared this to playing a life-size version of Sokoban or one of these sliding puzzles. This situation will improve a lot as soon as the arcade opens and we move the majority of these out of the workshop. So let's just have a quick overview of what we're dealing with here. Let's start with the marquee. It's faded and plastic pieces are flaking off of it.
Yeah,
there's similar
rough.
issues with the control panel artwork. The joysticks feel okay. This T-molding has seen better days, and there's lots of scuffs in the paint, and the T-molding is falling out at the bottom, where I believe there is water damage.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I love the wings. They're one of my favorite parts.
This is interesting. This is the only side art that came with this game. At this point, I should probably mention Street Fighter 2 was primarily sold as a kit game. And what that means is you only got the board and some bits of artwork. It was up to you to install it in a cabinet. That means possibly gutting a game that was getting old and out of style, or using a generic cabinet. The point is you won't find a lot of these that look the same. Now, I believe this cabinet was made by Dynamo and was a generic cabinet. Oh, and here's some trivia. See these two nails? This almost guarantees this was at one time located at an Aladdin's castle. They were notorious about using these little metal property tags that had a nail at each end. On the front, we have some nasty sticky tape. The coin door is okay. We will, of course, have to change the lock. And no surprise, we'll need to replace the power cord. Okay, the first thing I want to do is test it and see what condition it's in, electrically speaking. Apologize for the glare, but the CRT actually looks pretty good. The speakers sound good too, and clearly the board set is working. I had Ashton play the game for a few minutes to test out the controls and make sure everything was stable, and it seemed to play fine. So amazingly, for once, it doesn't appear that we need to work on the monitor, the controls, or the board set.
Right?
I think it's going to be mostly the cabinet itself that needs repair. Okay, let's get to work on it.
This is going to be interesting because there's no actual, like, they're all kits, so they're basically just going to have to copy one of the
You
kit
can see
designs.
the water damage here at the bottom. We can improve this a little bit with some Bondo. We need to remove this coin door, but it's locked and we did not receive a key with it. This is actually quite common, so we're just going to drill the lock out. Here's the coin box.
No money. I should at least get money for that. Oh, wait. There is a quarter. Dated year 2000.
Hey, let me show you our stash. So in the kitchen, we have these two cups. This one has tokens in it, and this one has money in it. And we've saved all of the money and tokens that we found inside of these machines when we opened them up. Here's a sample of some of the interesting ones. This is a Namco token, Peter Piper Pizza, Holiday Inn. I guess they used to have arcades at their hotels.
Yeah,
Virtual
they did.
Fun, Jeepers, Family Fun Centers, and Boomers. So as you can see, the machines we get come from all over. Anyway, back to work. Let's get this coin door out.
Dead and time prices. Get the name of the cop game. Had the sniper right.
Now I'm going to mix up some Bondo.
Those ones
and
have to
I'm just
suck.
going to apply this stuff all over the sides to try to fill in the pits, scratches, and water damage as best as possible. And while that's curing, I want
No,
to
I'm
turn my
not.
attention
I was
to
born in
another problem.
'88.
Okay, so
I'm
it's
a
not
millennial.
uncommon for us to have to replace bad feet on these arcades. However, when we started looking at the bottom of this, we realized there are no feet, so we need to add some.
It looks like there used to be some sort of feet on the bottom, but I'm not sure what kind. So I'm just going to install some of our usual feet.
Anyone want to? Being part of the VTuber community has made me feel
And there we
older
go. One down.
because it's a bunch
three
of
more to go.
20-somethings who don't
Okay,
get
the
any of my
Bondo is
jokes.
cured. Now to sand it down flush with the side. As an example, here's where there used to be some screw or nail holes in the side, which are now flush.
Oh yeah, Kane,
This
you're a
is always a
zoomer.
good workout for the arm muscles.
Wax on, wax off.
Okay, that's done. Time to blow it off so we can apply
Like
some
it's Boomer,
primer.
Gen X, Millennials.
And I'll take this opportunity to explain
Zoomers,
that ultimately we plan to put
and
vinyl
Alpha.
artwork on the side. However, for it to stick to the surface, it really needs to be painted. And this process also helps to make sure the surface is very flat. Any imperfections will show through the vinyl. Now, the front, on the other hand, we're just going to paint it black again, so we'll be treating it a little differently. Okay, the primer is done, and because we did this outside, it is expected
I
to
should
see
do a
bits of
cover of that
debris
one song.
here and there,
Whatever
but that's
you
fine
say,
because the next
Zoomer.
step is to sand the
Okie
primer.
dokie, Zoomer.
Okay, now it's time to remove the control panel. This will make it easier to paint because we need to work on the control
I'm
panel
5 years
too.
older than you, I think. So.
As for this plexiglass, I'm planning to replace this as it's pretty scratched up, but I'm going to leave it here for the moment while we paint. The paint is going on really nicely, and I think if all we planned to do was just to paint it black, that alone would be a massive improvement over how it looked before. Now, it's time to remove the plexi and the monitor bezel so we can paint around that. And that's where we found this little surprise. It's a dirt dauber nest.
10. Be careful. We
Looks
have
like
to.
one of the little critters is still inside
We'll have
there.
to pay the
Wonder how
Bibu
long
tax
this has
again.
Been there. Time to remove the marquee. We need to replace this anyway. It looks like it was originally designed to use an incandescent bulb. I'm going to replace that with an LED before we're done. Okay, a bit more painting.
It's amazing
And
how
while the
much a
paint is
little
drying,
paint
it's time to
makes
turn our
it
attention to
look
this
so much
control
better.
panel. It's
Like,
in pretty bad shape.
it's crazy.
And I wouldn't put this out on the floor
It's
like this.
crazy,
The
bro.
first thing we need to do is remove all the buttons and joysticks from it. Now let's see if we can clean up this plexiglass. Now we'll remove the old artwork.
That artwork was super faded.
Of course, this leaves behind a sticky residue, so we'll have to clean that up. And we'll take off that rust and old paint that's still on there. Now that it's all clean, I'll spray some primer on it. Then sand it, and then paint it. There we go, that looks much better. And this is where we realized another problem. Somebody at some point in time had spliced every single wire on these controls, and the way they did it was by twisting the wires together, soldering them, and then putting electrical tape around them. So we're going to completely redo these. Now, admittedly, the splices aren't very elegant, but that's not the reason. The main problem is they used electrical tape, and it's already starting to fall off some of the wires. Heat shrink is really a more permanent fix, but the only way to get the heat shrink on is by cutting the wire and resoldering it. So that's what we're going to do. Now, to be clear, the reason we're doing this is because if we don't, as this electrical tape falls off piece by piece, these wires will eventually wind up touching each other or grounding out to the metal control panel. So I'd rather spend a few minutes here to redo these than be dealing with a flaky or broken down machine on the floor of the arcade later on.
The only thing I disagree with the way David does his restorations is I don't like using heat shrink because if you have to service it later, it's a pain in the ass to get off. But a lot of times when he's using it, he's like, I'm not going to have to open this again. But there's been times he's done that and then be like, oh shit, I made a mistake. And now he has to cut all that heat shrink off. Your best bet is to use some kind of wrap, not tape, but there's like a wrap you can get that will do the same thing that heat shrink does. Yeah, it's one of those things where like heat shrink is good if you never plan to service it in your lifetime again, or at least you don't plan to for a really long time. I feel like it's not too long ago. So that's one thing for anybody restoring it there. You're better off using a wrap because a wrap is easier to get off. Unless you are planning to not service it for like, I don't know, 30 years or something like that. Like for a long period of time, 20, 30 years. Otherwise, heat shrink is a really more permanent thing. And I say permanent because you can still get heat shrink off, but it is a pain in the ass. So if you can use heat shrink, make sure you never have to open that again. I always say do it after you've tested, but whatever.
So, my brother Mike has been working on creating some side art for the machine. What he did was took the original artwork, which is just this little poster like this, and then expanded it out to fit the whole side of the machine. Now, before you jump to your keyboard and start telling us how it's not original, keep in mind this was a kit game, so there is no specific standard by which to say what is or isn't original. Anyway, while that's printing, I wanted to replace the marquee light with an LED, and I noticed there was this plug, so I was like, what the heck does that go to? I couldn't see it connected to anything around back, but then I realized there was a light just out of my view laying on the bottom of the marquee. So I tested the light, and it actually worked, so I figured we'd just keep it, but it needs to be mounted properly, and I realized what they had done was just put one of these things in, so apparently the fixture originally held 2 incandescent bulbs. Now, we replace every marquee light with an LED, and I know some people would rather they stay original, but the truth is, we don't want to be replacing these bulbs constantly. That puts wear and tear on the machines, plus the heat can degrade the marquee artwork.
Exactly.
And multiply that by 100 machines, and it really does affect our electric bill, not only in terms of power for the lights themselves, but for the air conditioning needed to counteract all the heat from those 200 marquee bulbs. Now think about it like this. If each machine had 2 40-watt bulbs inside, that's 80 watts. Multiply that by 100 machines, and now you're talking 8,000 watts. That would be the same as running 5 of these 1500 watt space heaters, so it really adds up. Okay, light is properly installed. Let's test it. And it works. Now I'm going to vacuum out the bottom of this thing.
Much better.
Now it's
Much
time
better
to
to
put
use
it on
LED.
its side so we can install the side art. I'm going to lightly sand the paint to remove any debris that might have gotten stuck in it, and then we'll just give it a good cleaning. And here's the side art. I'll trim away some of this white area to make it easier to work with.
When he
Probably
says
the most
white,
challenging
is always
part of
just
this is getting
white.
it properly lined up how we want it on the
White.
machine. And once we're sure it's correct, we'll clamp it down to the side, and then we'll peel back just a little area on the bottom like this, and apply it to the cabinet. Once that's done, we'll remove the clamps, roll it up, and then start working at it from the other direction until it's all the way done. Next, we'll trim away the excess vinyl on the back and underside of the cabinet. However, we do things a little different on the front because it has to tuck under the T-molding. Speaking of T-molding, we decided to go with this purple color as we felt
I
it was
like
a good
it.
match for the artwork.
I like the purple. Wonder why.
It takes about an hour to put one side of this artwork and T-molding, but it is so worth it. Check that out. This side of the machine is now unrecognizable from how it looked before. We're going to use a similar procedure for the artwork on the control panel.
Ugh. So it's so nerve-wracking putting that stuff on.
Oh, and we
What,
even go so
white?
far as to clean up
I
the
say
rusty
white, not
bolts that
white.
hold on the control panel. After sanding, we'll give them a coat of primer and then a coat of paint.
There you go.
Okay, so here's the panel currently, but we need to add these control labels, which can be a challenge to place them on correctly. The way we do this is to shine a light through the bottom so we can see how it lines up, and then tape it with some masking tape, peel the back off, stick it down like so. And as you can see, the hole lined up perfectly in the center. I'm going to start reassembling the control panel now.
Actually, to speak to it reminds me of the old videos I used to watch of restoring old objects. Yeah. I like David's restorations because I learned something while watching him restore stuff. It makes me feel less anxious about
Now it's time to
doing
reattach it to the
repairs
cabinet so that I can test all of the controls.
myself, so. And that's really how anxiety is. You think you get afraid to do something that you just don't do it. But then you think about it logically,
And everything seems to be
and
working fine, so let's move on to
then-
making some new pieces
yeah.
of plexiglass.
then you do it, yeah. Restoration ASMR. God, what if I did?
I'm going to cut out a piece for the monitor and for the marquee. cutting this type of material does require a special blade and also
just have to get
disabling
a,
the safety feature
I just
of
have to
the
get
SawStop table
special
saw.
mic for
Okay,
that.
so it's time to turn our
And then I
attention
have to
to this
whisper the whole
marquee.
time.
And earlier in the video, I said that not only is it all cracked up, but I thought it was fairly faded. And well, here's the new one that we made, and you can tell there is definitely quite a bit of difference there. So it was absolutely faded. I have also cut out a new piece of acrylic or plexiglass for that to fit on. And then, of course, there's this bar that holds it all into place. And, of course, it has 4 holes, but originally, as we received it, it only came with 3 screws. This is quite common, of course. Not only are these not only missing a screw, but none of these even match each other. They're just like whatever screws someone found laying around and just screwed them in there. So, yeah, we're going to put new screws in this.
Okay, so let's get this marquee mounted.
All right.
That's going to look great. We'll just plug it in real quick to see how it looks with the backlight. And it looks great. And now it's time to mount the other piece of plexi over the monitor. I'll clean the CRT right quick since it was pretty dirty. Here's the bezel. Now for the new piece of plexi. That's looking great. There's really only one more thing we need, and that's the coin door.
Okay, so
Yeah, so Saki, we're watching David from Time Rift Arcade restore a Street Fighter arcade cabinet.
More money in there. Look at all of that. Not sure why. So there was all kinds of coins in here for whatever reason, including dimes and nickels, and I don't know what the heck that is. And also a single googly eye.
So I'll just add that to our existing stash. There's some really nasty adhesive on this door, probably from an old piece of tape. I tried a number of chemicals to remove it.
So
The one
David,
that seemed to finally do the job was alcohol. And I'll just use some Windex to get all the rest of the dirt off. Unfortunately, the alcohol seems to have messed up the paint a little bit, so I have a quick fix for that. I'll just repaint the doors. I'll just mask off the coin mechanism, as that's faster than removing them, and there we go. Now that's going to look great. And while that's drying, I can go ahead and reattach the main part here. I think the new doors are ready now, so I'll remove the tape.
I love David's restorations a lot. Wish you would do more of them.
Of course, we need to put new locks on these that are keyed to our master key. And since all of our games are free play, it's not like there'll ever be any money here to protect, but we still want to keep little kids from messing around inside the machines, so they still need locks. Now it's time to power it on for the final test. But before we give it a good look over, I'd like to remind you of what it looked like before we started. And here's how it looks now.
It's like night and day.
So I just had a few final thoughts I wanted to share with you about this project. So first of all, I want to talk about how long did it actually take? Because, watching a 20-minute video doesn't always convey exactly how long it takes something in real life. So this project, we've been working on and off for about 6 weeks, and we probably have between 40 and 50 man-hours of labor involved in it, which is actually surprisingly typical for a machine of this age. In fact, the only thing that really sets this machine apart from a lot of our other restorations is that we didn't have to do any work on the board set or the monitor or the power supply, because usually we do, and that could easily add several more days of labor troubleshooting those things. One of the most gratifying parts of an arcade restoration is getting to spend a little time test playing the game. This may come as a shock to people, but I've actually never played Street Fighter of any kind up to this point. So I was trying to figure out some of the special moves, but not having a whole lot of luck. The only fighting game I was ever any good at was International Karate on my Commodore 64. Anyway, stay tuned for the next video from the Time Rift Arcade, and thanks for watching.
Sorry, guys. I not off for a second there. I'm sorry. I probably need Nomalums. They were good. They were good. They were good. I need to get some caffeine before we start playing Marvel Rivals, so I'm gonna go do that. Well, Sora, if we get the goal for a for a for the IRL stream, I may take you guys to an arcade I go to called Palladium for a live stream. Yeah, I think I'm gonna make actually some tea. Ooh, I can have iced coffee. Ooh, I can make iced coffee. All right, I'm gonna go make iced coffee. In the meantime, I'm gonna put on one of my videos that you guys can watch, and I'll be right back.